Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. This, if I can fit it under the camera, is a 1976 Chevy Sport step-side pickup in 1/24 scale from Revell. And this is what we're going to build today. So, let's get on with it. So yes, this is, as I mentioned, a 76 Chevy pickup. This model actually came from America. It was a gift from Bunny Kitten. Thank you, Bunny Kitten. Love you. And I'm kind of curious to see how it goes. Now, interestingly enough, on the back here, I don't know if you can see that, it says distributed in the UK by Carrera Revell UK Limited. But I've never seen stuff like this actually for sale in the UK. I don't think there's much market for them over here, to be honest. But anyway, I was just trying to see if I could find a date on it. It looks like it was made in China. But, you know, isn't everything these days? Please keep details for future reference. I shall be sure to do that. Oh, yeah, it says it there, made in China. Oh, here we go. That's what I was looking for. Manufactured by Revell. Copyright 2021, so hopefully this is a fairly new build. Let's open the box and, oh, if I can open the box and see what's in here. So lots of plastic bags. So there are our tyres and the glass, and there is the body, or most of the body. That's all the interior and drivetrain by the looks of it. And then we have a big bunch of chrome bits, but we're going to deal with them a bit differently. I'll show you that in a minute. So let's put all this to one side for a second, because we also have instructions and decals. Right, let's have a look at these first. Oh, I've got seat belts. That's a good idea. So these are all the various, you know, trim lines and whatnot. It's got a selection of number plates, like the USA ones. I think we'll have to use those ones in tribute to Bunny Kitten, you know, America and all that. Might have to put eagle screeches on every time we see these. But yeah, they look all right. I like the wooden, the way they've got the wooden paneling for the bed. That's cool. Yeah, okay, that's fine. They look all right. Now let's have a look at these instructions quickly. Oh, right. Where are the actual instructions? Okay, they're all black and white, which is fair enough. Oh, looks fairly straightforward. Oh, it's got different, you can have different valve covers. That's interesting. The heads are separate, that's fine. Yeah, all looks fairly straightforward. Now, one thing that's interesting with this is the fact that it has actual rubber tyres. And one of the things that I've found on some of my older kits that have rubber wheels on it, after a time, the rubber splits. So it'd be interesting to see how well these hold up, but that's more of a long-term project. Now, let us have a quick look and see what kind of state this is in. It all looks fairly standard, to be honest. Let's just open one of these bags up. I won't go through all of the parts, but we'll just have a quick look. I just want to see what sort of state they're in. Oh, it's very white. It actually doesn't look terrible. I think we're going to have to get rid of some mold lines here and there, but it actually doesn't look that bad. There's definite mold lines on it. I can feel them. Like on that exhaust, for example, there's very distinct mold lines. But yeah, on the whole, It doesn't look terrible. It's kind of a weird plastic though. It looks very plasticky, if that makes sense. Now, oh, actually, that's interesting. If you look at the dashboard there, hopefully you can see that. It has the gauges molded into the plastic, but then they give you the decals for it as well. You'd think they would have just left those flat, but anyway, that doesn't matter. We'll see how it goes. So, right, okay, that's all fine. Now, let us turn our attention to this. Because one of the problems that I find with this is this chrome looks, you know, very shiny, looks the part. But what happens is, it's like here, on the bumpers, once you cut those off, you end up with a big, I'm assuming white, yeah, it is white, you can see it's white there. There's going to be a big white bit there, which I don't like, and I don't want that. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to strip the chrome off of these parts, and then we're going to paint them. Because the other thing I want to do is I want to make this look not terrible, but I want it to look used. I want it a little bit like rusty in places, and that includes the bumpers. So I think what we'll do is we'll strip these parts off and then go from there. Because it's also like here, I mentioned mold lines and things. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's some really bad flashing on this gear shift. Now this is not terrible because this would have to be painted black anyway, but it's, again, once you remove that, you're going to take all the chrome off. So yeah, and the same with the mirror, well, all of the parts. The wheels not so bad because they usually grip them on the edge, but everything else is going to show. But anyway, let me grab something and I'll show you how we're going to treat this. Right, so what I've got here in this tub, which you'll see is marked bleach. It's not actually bleach, but it's not far off. This is actually this stuff here. This is Buster plug hole sanitizer gel. You may remember, some of you, if you've watched the channel for a while, I did a test a while back on which cheap household product was best for stripping off chrome, and this stuff was the stuff of the various products that I bought, and everybody's got their own way of doing this, but of the ones that I tested, this one worked the best. So I've got some here in this tub, and what we're going to do, because this frame won't fit in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this frame into pieces like so, and that will now fit in there quite nicely. And that one still won't, so we need to cut this down a little bit more. And there we go. So we'll poke those down with a stick. Might need to put some more stuff in there actually. Let's put a bit more of this in. There we go. Right, and we'll basically leave this now and let it cook. I'll put the lid back on and leave it, and we can start moving on with some of the other parts, and hopefully by the time we're ready, these should all be nicely stripped off. I might put something on top of them to weight them down. Actually, couple of old empty paint pots here. I'll just put those on top and that will weight them down, and then we'll pop the lid back on and put that to one side. There we we go. Right, now we can move on with the rest of the kit. Well, that's interesting. I was going to move on to something else. I was just sorting out some bits and pieces and tools and whatnot. And literally in the space of a couple of minutes, that has stripped off that chrome. It's literally taken minutes. So that's useful. So I'll take these in the house and give them a wash up and clean all of this gunk off, and we can start using this stuff already. It literally took like 2 or 3 minutes to strip it clean. Lovely stuff. Right, so I've just washed these bits off with some warm soapy water, and I think you'll agree they've come out very nicely. One thing I always find interesting when you clear chromed parts is sometimes you get this like yellowish whatever it is on some of them. It doesn't affect it, but it's just interesting how that happens. But yeah, there you go. So that's all nice and clean. So yeah, we can crack on with this thing now. Right, so I've just thrown some primer at all of the frames. It's just our usual high coat grey primer. Because it makes things easier to see, and you can now, let me give you a demonstration. Like here on the frame, it has the exhaust pipes built in, and you can see there's lots of flashing. Not a lot of flashing, but there is some flashing. There are mold lines everywhere. For example, here on the suspension, you can see all round the springs. Some of it's worse than others. There's a lovely mold line across the back of the diff cover there, and also on the drive shafts. So it just makes those a bit easier to see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend some time cleaning up some of the easier and bigger to get at bits. And then we'll start some assembly, and the smaller bits we'll just clean up as we go along. Right, well, I've just been working on this cab, and cleaning this thing up is going to take a long time. It's actually a lot worse than I first thought. Basically, every edge has a mold line on it, and some are far worse than others. So, for example, here in the wheel wells, there's a thick ridge of plastic all along the bottom of here. There's a lovely mold line that goes all the way along the wing there, and then curves up and goes right round the top of the door. It's just, you can see on this side how much I've cleaned up from where I've removed the primer. All round the back here, all round the windscreen, there were big thick bits of flashing that I've had to remove without obviously changing the shape of the opening. Yeah, it's this is going to take a while, and it's I'm not entirely sure how well this is going to fit together, to be honest, because this is the back of the cab, obviously, and there are some, it's a lot better now I've cleaned it up, but there are still gaps. And the trouble is, you can't put the back of the cab on until you've put the interior in, because you need to be able to spread the cab open like that to get the interior in. I think that's why they've made it the way they have, because the interior is basically like a tub that fits inside. But yes, I will continue with this, much wailing and gnashing of teeth, and yeah, I think this is going to take considerably longer than I thought it would, but you know, there you go. Oh, this is getting tiresome now. I've been cleaning up this cab for what time is it? Probably about 4 hours now. Finally getting it to somewhere near usable. The bonnet doesn't fit properly, but we'll worry about that another time. But I just wanted to show you something quickly, and this is a problem that you quite often find with a lot of kits, is the way they're attached to the frames. It's a very thick connection, and if you try and cut that with clippers, you're going to leave a big gouge in the plastic. So what I do, I'll just cut this off. What I do is I take an older pair of clippers, and I cut the actual sprue like that. And leave those bits on there. And then this is where having a razor saw comes in very handy. This is a razor saw from JLC. This is I think they're I can't think where they're based now. Czechoslovakia, I think. But this is great. The blade on it is so thin. In fact, hang on. So the blade on this is about just over 0.1 of a millimeter. It's a 1/10 of a millimeter. It's very, very thin. So you have to be careful with it because you can snap these blades really easily, but they give you such a fine cut. And what you do is just line that up with the edge. And oh, actually, this has a fine side and a coarse side. So line it up with the edge and just like that, you see. And that will give you a nice clean cut. The one problem with this is the depth of cut is not great, but if you just come in at an angle, cut that off and you can clean the rest up with a knife, you see. So just something if you're working on models like this that have very thick edges or very thick connection points, razor saws are your friend. So just thought I'd share that with you while I continue with this massive cleanup effort. This thing is going to take, it's going to take probably 10 times longer to clean up the parts than it is to actually put the thing together. But anyway, there you go. I shall continue and come back when we're actually ready to put this thing together. And actually, there was one other thing I wanted to point out as well. I noticed when I was cleaning the back up, the box says copyright 2021. The parts say copyright 1978. So yeah, that kind of explains why this thing is in such a terrible, terrible state. Because it's really old and the molds are shot. But, you know, we'll do what we can. Anyway, onwards. Right, I may have got slightly carried away off camera. But just to show you where we are right now, I have been working on the chassis, and you will notice from before it is now quite different. I have removed all of the old exhaust pipe because it was basically rubbish, and because not only where has it gone, the various bits that I cut off. So I also removed this cross member which had the silencers on it, because they're not great, and it's like all of the bits of exhaust. I mean, this is the exhaust. It's just like not great, so I got rid of all of that, and I also, as you can see, have changed the engine. The engine that came with it was this one, which is okay, but I wasn't really overly happy with it. And I had this is an engine I built a while ago, just for a bit of fun. It's a supercharged 572 big block, and I decided that I would put it in this. So I have modified it slightly to make it fit, basically so that it would fit on the mounting points of the original model. And I cut a bit of the tail housing off so that it goes up against the transfer case. And I am now currently working on a new exhaust, as you can see. So that's all coming along nicely. Now, the keen-eyed among you may notice that up here I have mullered the exhaust slightly to make it fit behind the transfer case. And I dare say people are already angrily typing in the comments about how that kills horsepower and all the rest of it. Well, actually it doesn't. It's kind of funny actually. There's a TV show on Motor Trend called Engine Masters, David Freiberger and various other people. And they basically build engines and they test things. So when people say, you know, oh, you should never do this or you should always do that, and you know, they actually test these things. They build engines, they put them on a dyno, and they test them with various configurations to actually see what happens. And one of the ones they did was on people bending headers to make them fit, you know, like hammering dents into headers and stuff like that. And it was kind of funny because I genuinely thought it would make a difference, and I think they all did as well, and it didn't. They took this header, they put this engine on the dyno, tested it, you know, and it made a horsepower number, you know, let's say 500 horsepower, for example. And then they put they took the headers off and they dented them to see if it would make a difference. And they ended up denting these headers almost flat, and it made no difference to the power output of the engine. So there you go, which I must admit surprised me. But anyway, that's beside the point. I dare say people are still going to put comments in saying that, but that's whatever. So I have been making new exhausts, as you can see. So what I've been using is this is evergreen tubing. I think it's 4mm tubing or something like that. Yeah, that's what I've been using. So I have been cutting and shaping the exhaust, and I saved the last cut to show you how I've been doing it. So let's just take that out for a minute, put that to one side. Oh, this, by the way, is this is the start of one of the coil lead harnesses. So that will eventually go on like that, but we'll get to that later. This was just a test to see if it worked, which it did. As you can see, I've already put 2 bends in this, and I need to put another bend in it. I mean, I don't need to, I could put the pipe straight out, but I want to put a little downturn on it. So I have marked roughly where the cut needs to be, and this is how we're going to do it. So we are going to take a razor saw. We talked about razor saws before in a previous video, and what we need to do is make a cut through the pipe. You don't want to go all the way through, but you want to go like nearly all the way through. So like that, you see. And then make another cut, basically like a blade width away. Like that. And we'll do another one. Just be careful not to cut all the way through, because it's very easy. And with those cuts, you can then bend the pipe, you see. Now, we might need to bend that a bit more. Now, what you can do is just basically cut one of these pieces out. Or break it out with your fingers or whatever. And then, you know, just open up those gaps to make it bend more. So it really depends on how much you want to bend it. Now I'll use this one just to cut one of those pieces out. It's a process. You see, you could pie cut these and actually cut it all the way through and then glue them back together, but it's a lot of faff, and you don't really need to. So we'll just take that piece out like that, and then that will bend a lot more. And I only want to put a bend in it like that, just to, you know, give it a bit of interest. Then we take some glue, bend that into place. And we're going to put a bit on the back here as well, just to soften the plastic. And then we just hold that in place and let it dry. What you can do, and I have done on many occasions in the past, is if you take a piece of masking tape like this and put it over and just bend it into position and then tape it, and then you don't have to actually sort of sit there and hold it. So we'll let that dry and go on from there. Right, so there it is, all bent and glued up and suitably cut to length. And now that will go in here. Hang on. Basically like that. And there we have our exhausts. And when the time comes, I'll basically just super glue. This one is actually kind of pinned in place by the transfer box. But this one, both of them I'll just super glue in place. And that gives us our exhaust. So yeah, that's all looking fine. Now I think we can turn our attention to the cab and the body. Right, well, after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, I think I'm almost in a position to start putting this thing together, so we can certainly start putting some paint on it. So I'm going to start by doing the interior, because I want to get the cab all buttoned up and then masked and everything so that we can paint the exterior. So I'm going to start, I've decided I'm going to do this obviously with the theme that we're going for. In fact, I should probably explain the theme, shouldn't I? Effectively, this is going to be Father Christmas's attempt to modernise. An ill-fated attempt to modernise, shall we say, using a pickup truck instead of the sleigh. So, and more of that will come out as we go on. But basically, the colour theme is going to be two-tone red and white. So we're going to start, the interior is going to be red. And I'm going to start by using this XF7 flat red on the inside of the cab and obviously all the seats and everything. So that's first. Now I've primed the inside. I used the normal grey primer, but I also gave it a hit with some white. But I've kind of done some zenithal highlighting, so you can see it's darker on the underside than it is on the top. That's just to help the paint out a little bit. I didn't bother taking the lettering off of this because it will be hidden behind the seat. But we'll let all this dry and then we'll start doing some details. Right, so I have just painted the insert or the fascia of the dashboard black, and I've also given it a coat of gloss polyurethane. Again, just the high coat lacquer. And I'm waiting for that to dry because we need to do some detail work on that. I've also done the seats the same. They've been glossed because they're going to need some weathering and things on them. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, there's a few bits that I need to do silver. So I'm going to try out this new paint that I've got. This is Vallejo Model Air aluminium metallic. I bought a set. Actually, let me I don't know if I'll be able to show you it. I'll get it under the camera. It's this set here. And it's Vallejo's metallic set. It's not a sponsor or anything. I bought this with my own money. But you've basically got silver, there's chrome, there's steel, gold, brass, copper, metallic rust, which I'm not quite sure about, metallic red, metallic blue, metallic gunmetal, metallic black, wood, rust, a fluorescent red, orange colour, and gunship grey. And that all came in a set. And I'm going to try this out for the first time, and I'm going to use this matte aluminium to do some, mainly what I want to do is the buckles for the seat belts, but there's a few other bits I want to do as well. So let's give this a try and see what it's like. Now, this is the front bumper. I think it's the front, or is it the back bumper? It's one of the bumpers anyway. You're supposed to be able to spray this straight out of the bottle, so let's see how it works. Let's see what it looks like. That's actually pretty good. I like that. Great. That seems to work all right. Let's get the seatbelt buckles and do those. Right, so here are our belt buckles. I 3D printed these. I got them off of Colts 3D or something. If I remember, I'll put a link up to them. But they came out pretty well, actually. Because the kit seat belts are actually decals, and I didn't like the look of those, so I thought I'd make some seat belts instead. There you go, looks all right, doesn't it? So I'll get on and do these. There's a few other bits I need to do as well, but I'll get all those done, and then we'll turn our attention back to the dashboard. Right, and while I'm waiting for all that to dry, I've got the windscreen here, and I'm going to paint the inside of it with this Tamiya X19 Smoke. This is one of the old jars. The difference in the size of this compared to the new ones. They used to be the same price, but there you go. Now, the trick to putting this on, I'm not going to spray it. I'm going to put it on with a brush, because if you spray it, it goes matte, and we want it to stay gloss. So what we're going to do is just, oh, if I can get the lid off. So we just get this and just brush it on. And what we want to try and do is try and get a nice, thin, even coat, which is not the easiest thing to do with a brush, mainly because this dries very quickly. And we don't want it drying streaky like that. So I'm going to do this fairly swiftly because I just need to get it done. But just go over it with the very lightly, with the very tip of the brush. Like that. Probably left a few brush marks in it. But if you look at that now, that looks a lot more glass-like than it did before. So it's a nice little trick. It works for windows, canopies, anything really. So yeah, that's all there is to it really. But once that's dry, we can put that into the cab. Right, so it's time to put some decals on this thing, or on the dashboard anyway. So I've got the sheet here. I've got my little air wick wax burner thing over here with some hot water in it. Very good bit of kit if you don't have one. Very well recommended. So what we need to do, you also notice actually, just as an aside, I also went around the bezels with one of these. This is a Molotov liquid chrome pen. So yeah, very useful if you don't have one. Good for doing little bits of trim like that. But that was just to see if it would work, which it did. I've got to do the others as well, but I'll do those later. So what we're going to do is try and put these decals on, which is going to be hilarious, but we'll see what we can do. So what I'm going to do, and this is going to be the really fun bit, is I'm going to see if I can put these in just as they are. I think they'll fit without having to trim them too much. But what we're going to do, I've got my Mr. Mark setter here. So we'll just put a little drop of this. I won't do all of them. I'll just show you one just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. We'll put a little drop of that in there. And that should hopefully be more than enough. And then we'll cut this off. And we're going to dip it in the water. Just for a few seconds. And then we'll try and fit it. Right, now normally you would slide a decal into place, but that's not going to work here because this is in a hole, basically. So we'll just have to try and do it like this. That actually went way better than I thought it was going to. And now I'll use a cocktail stick to try and get it where it needs to actually be. Right. Which I think is about there-ish. Now, I've got here a nice pointed cotton bud, and I'll see if I can just push that down into place, and hopefully it won't move around. There you go. That was surprisingly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Let me put the others on, and then we'll go on from there. Right, that's our decals in place. They actually went on surprisingly well. I was quite pleased with that. I also gave it a quick lick over with some matte polyurethane just to seal it all. But what I want to do now to try and make these look a bit more, you know, gaugey, I've got some X22 clear here. So this is gloss varnish. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically put a layer of this over the gauges to make it look like glass. So this should be hilarious, but we'll give it a go. Right. So we want to get quite a nice blob of it on the brush, and then just kind of get it in and work it around. Oh. And go all the way to the edges. And then the surface tension should pull it into a nice little, almost like a dome. Like that, you see. And if you compare that to the one next to it, you can see it's a lot shinier, so it looks like glass. So, and we'll do the same on the small ones. And you can do this on aircraft or anything with gauges. Just like that, you see. And it just gives it a nice bit of shine to it. And just makes it look a little bit more realistic. Like that. Do that other big one as well. As usual, this is kind of tricky doing it in front of the camera, but I'm sure you get the idea. There you go, like that. I'll just go around these edges a little bit more just to try and get rid of any imperfections. That's better. There we go. Marvellous. So what I'm going to do now is basically finish putting this dashboard together. So put the steering wheel on. In fact, before I do that, I've got some other bits that need to go on. Hang on a second. Right, now I mentioned using this liquid chrome pen to go around the gauges, and I really don't know if I'm going to be able to do this in front of the camera. I suspect probably not. I'm probably going to make a complete lash up of this, but I'll give it a try. But basically what you want to do is just take the very tip of it, like that. You might have to go back in and touch it up a little bit, but that's fine. Definitely gonna have to touch it up again, but you get the idea. So I'll do the other one as well. I shall use the excuse that I'm doing it in front of the camera for why I'm making a complete dog's breakfast of it. I'll touch that up. I think this might be a little bit beyond the abilities of this pen. Even with a 1mm tip, it's still a bit, yeah. But like I say, it's fine. We can touch that up again. It's easy enough. But that doesn't look too bad, does it? Now, I've also got a couple other bits to do there, but I'll touch this paint up and then put these other bits on. Right, so I've cleaned up those vents a little bit, as you can see. slightly less rubbish now. But what we're going to do is we're going to put these little 3D printed switch panels on. So I've got some super glue here. If I can remember where I got these switches from, I'll put a link in the description. We'll just put a nice little blob of super glue there. Try and get this on without making too much of a lash up of it. Right, that's that one. Now let's see if we can get this one on. And this goes over the vent on this side. Oh. Like that. I think that just adds a certain what's it to the whole thing. Now, the keen-eyed among you will notice there's a little bit of wire sticking out of here. And that is for fire extinguisher. So, this is where things get really exciting. So we want a bit of glue on the wire. We'll just put a touch on the there and there. And you'll notice that there's a hole in the bottom here. And that's what I was actually using to hold it while I painted it. But it also gives me somewhere to help attach it. So rather than just using the feet, there's a bit more of a mechanical joint. Right, and we'll just pop that on like that. There we go. Right, that doesn't look too bad, does it? And I think now we can also put the steering column on. Right. And that goes in like that. There we go. And what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of glue on the back of that to hold it. Like that. There we go. It's kind of funny still having the gear shift. Oh, I haven't showed you the gear shift yet, have I? We're putting an aftermarket gear shifter in it. But I've noticed on a lot of sort of these kind of trucks, people just leave the original gear shift in place, and it's just like, whatever. But there you go. And I think we could probably put the steering wheel on as well. Now, let's just make sure. I haven't actually dry fitted this steering wheel yet, so I just want to make sure it does actually fit. Which it does, that's good. And I think to attach that, we'll use some of this Revell contactor. Right. So we'll put a little... Whoop, that's way too much. That is definitely way too much. Let's just get rid of some of that, I think. Oh dear. So much for precision applicator. Still, it's all right. Right, and then we'll just drop that on like that. There we go. And then we will leave this and let it dry completely. But I think that looks all right, doesn't it? I like the switches and that. It just kind of adds a certain wattage to the whole thing, makes it look a little bit more, you know, special, shall we say. A bit more hot roddy. Right, and I think after that we can turn our attention to the rest of the interior. Right, so moving on. I apologise if this video seems slightly disjointed. It's just that I'm doing little bits and pieces here and there, and it's kind of... anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit these panels that I made. So this is basically the door handle and the window winder, because basically the kit provides these decals for the doors, and they're a bit So what I did was I spent a couple of minutes in Tinkercad and effectively made like a 3D version of that decal, just because I think it looks a bit more, you know, a bit more interesting. So what I need to do now is fix these onto the doors. Now, helpfully, it doesn't give you any indication on where they're supposed to go, but I think they're basically meant to go sort of something like that. Oh. So we'll see if we can get these glued in place without gluing them to my fingers, which would be helpful. Alright, so we'll apply some super glue to the back of it. That's way too much. Alright, and try and put this in place. So I think if we go somewhere around there in the middle, stay. Something like that. Looks all right, doesn't it? Alright, there we go. Now, I think we can also put the shifter in. So, I mentioned before an aftermarket shifter, and this is it. Again, this is one I designed myself in Tinkercad, and that goes through those holes. If I can get it. This would probably be a lot easier if I had the glasses on, but there you go. Oh. Alright, that goes like that. And then this is the stick for the four-wheel drive side of things. So that goes like that. Right, and some glue would be helpful. Like that. Right. Oh. There. And I think next we need to start thinking about putting the engine management system in. Actually, before we do the engine management system, I want to do the seat belts, or at least get them glued up. So this is one of the buckles. I'll just do one to show you because they're kind of tricky to do. But what I've got here is some 3mm wide satin ribbon, and I'm going to use this for the seat belts. So that will just fit through there like that. And then as you can imagine, this is not the easiest thing to do, but we fold that back over like that. And then we apply a little drop of glue. And this is where I end up sticking it all to my fingers. And then we try and squeeze it together somewhere near straight, like that. And then we hold it until the glue dries. But as you can see, that will give us our seat belt. So I'll do the rest of these as well. It's just so I can basically leave these drying while I do the other bits. Right, so as I mentioned before, the engine management system, or vehicle management system, hopefully you can see that all right. This is my rendition of a Haltech Nexus R5, again created in Tinkercad very, very quickly. But what we need to do now is, hopefully you can see, I'm trying to see if you can see that, there are a series of holes in the bottom here where the wires, the various cables connect. So I have here a piece of strategically bent wire, and what we're going to do is try and glue these wires into this, which is going to be hilarious. So we need to put a little drop of super glue on each wire. It's really far too cold to be doing this. This super glue is not reacting well to winter. But as ever, we will do what we can. Right, so now what we need to do is try and get these into the various holes. He says, knowing full well this probably isn't going to work, but we'll give it a go. Oh, no, now I've got super glue all over the tweezers, that's helpful. Oh, it. Oh, it won't stay. Oh. There we go, got it. Right, as you can see, this is really awkward, but you get the idea. We just basically glue each wire into the hole. Stay. Now let's try and get this one in. That's probably going to pop straight back out again. Yep. Nope, that's it, we got it now. And now this one. Like something like that. Right, I'm just going to sit here and hold this for a minute and let this glue dry. And then we'll carry on from there. But basically the next step is to take some of the same wire that we used before, the red and the black, to create the power connections. So I'll let these dry and then I'll stick those in as well, and then I'll paint these wires black. So let me do all that and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Right, so there we are with the various wires and things attached. And now for the really fun bit, we need to glue it in basically down here. Somewhere like that. Okay, so let's get some glue on. Oh, God. Oh. Right, let's get some glue on the back of this. Right, and let's see if we can get this in. Stop laughing at the back. Oh. Right, I think we might have got it. There we go. Whew. Okay, so the last thing we want to do before we put the dashboard on is put the seat belts on, but I'm going to leave this for a minute to dry before I do that. But just to show you, there are our seat belts. So you can see they're all nicely done, and basically they need to go. I need to trim them down. I deliberately left the fabric too long so that I could, you know, cut it to length, because, you know, better too long than too short, right? So they will go something like that. I need to cut that down a little bit more, but, and they'll go something like that. So I'll get all those glued in, and then we can think about putting the dashboard on. Right, now for the really fun bit, attaching the dashboard. This is why I've left all these wires long, you see, because once I've got the dash in place, I can basically make sure they're out of sight and then cut them down to length. Except for this one, you'll see what I'm going to do with this one later. Okay, so because as usual, this does not fit together terribly well. wants to be something like that. Right, and now we get to sit and hold this until it dries. Right, so I thought I'd just give you a quick update on where we are. I've done a few bits off camera. I confess I did get a little bit carried away with the cab. I've put the interior in the cab, put the back on, sealed all that up, filled it, sanded it, blah, blah, blah. So the cab is more or less done now. Now, I've also done some work on the grille. I'm not going to put the grille on probably till very near the end. But that's almost done. That's ready to be for lights and wiring. And at the moment, I am just working on the roll cage. Now, I wasn't going to put the roll bar on, but then I thought, why not? So what I've got here is I've drilled out the holes in the floor of the bed, and I'm using that as a jig to hold all this in place while it's glued together. And then that way I can take this off, clean it up, paint it, and then put it back on again. I can also paint the bed. I am going to put these lights on, and what I've done, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but I have actually drilled holes through the end of the the standoffs, so I can put LEDs in these spotlights as well. Still trying to figure out how I'm going to run the wires yet, but we'll worry about that later. So once this is all dry, I'm not putting the CB aerial antenna on because I don't like the look of that. So I'll fill that hole. So yes, once this is dry, get it all cleaned up, fit the lights, and then paint that. And to paint it, I'm going to use, and I'm going to try, where's it gone? For all of these bits, the bumpers and everything else, I'm going to go over them again with this chrome and see what it looks like. I'll do one piece first and just test it and see what it's like. But the aluminium's come out looking pretty good, so I'm hoping that this chrome will work just as well. So you'll see that when I put that on. We'll give that a go and see what it looks like. But at the moment, it's just lots and lots of little fiddly bits and pieces. You can see from the state of this, I mean, I always find it's easier to prime things and then clean them because you can see easier what needs doing. And so this was completely grey, and as you can see, it's now almost completely white again because there was just so much flashing on it. But we're getting there slowly but surely. So I'm going to wait for this to dry. And then I think what we'll do is we'll fit the lights, and then we'll start painting some chrome. And then we can put all that to one side, and then we can start painting the cab and the body. We've also got the chassis to put together, which I completely forgot about. But the chassis, I think I'm just going to do in black. But we'll figure that out when we get to it. So that's where we are. Still a long, long way to go, but progress is happening. Right, so is ever the case, I'm about to do something very silly. I don't know why I do this to myself, but anyway. So here's our roll cage done. And I can't remember if I mentioned before, but what I've done is I used the actual base as like a template to hold it in place while it dried. And there's a number of reasons for doing that. Firstly, to make sure it all fits together properly. But secondly, I'm about to cut this up. Now, why am I going to do that, you might say? Well, I ask myself the same question. Now, this has spotlights that go on the top, and I've decided, in my infinite wisdom, to make the spotlights light up as well, because it seems weird to me that if the headlights are working, the spotlights should be working as well. But there you go. Which is easy enough. I've drilled holes through the stem to run the wires through. That's fine. But the question is, what do I do with the wires now? Because I can't just have the wires hanging down. So what I'm going to do is I am going to replace these uprights with this. This is evergreen styrene. This is a piece that's been primed in the past. Don't worry about that. It should be white, but it's basically the same size as this. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cut the feet off, and I'm going to cut these off basically up here. So where they start to, where they complete the turn and go straight, I'm going to cut them off there. I'm going to glue the foot onto this and cut it obviously to the right length. And I'm also going to drill through the bottom of this so I can run and drill a hole at the top. So I can run the wire from the light. So there'll be a little bit of exposed wire, but that's fine. Into the tube, down and out the bottom. Now, that's going to be very, very difficult to do on camera, but I shall make a start just to give you an idea of what I'm doing. So, just, why am I doing this? We'll start with this one because it's easy to get hold of. So, oh, I need to measure it first. A ruler would be handy. There we go. Possibly a pencil. Right, so we'll just measure from the bottom. Let's say 40, yeah, 40 millimeters looks about right. So we'll cut it off there. Like that. Right. See, again, this would possibly have been easier without these attached, but without them being attached, I've got no reference on where they go, so. There we go. Right, no turning back now. Then we'll cut the foot off. I'm trying to do this under the camera and it's really difficult. Right. So we replace this with a piece of this. I could just do that like that actually, couldn't I? I don't even need to measure it, because then I know it's exactly the right length. There we go. So now I need to clean this up. And I need to drill a hole through this. Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? There they are. So we'll start with this, and I will try and do this without drilling it through my finger. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip the end off of this so that it's flat. Like that. Not entirely sure how flat that is. Right, nobody breathe. it's flat. This is where the drill's going to come popping through there and go straight into my finger. Oh. Oh. Right, there we go. That's got that through there. A bit brute force and ignorance. Now we need to open that hole up a little bit. It's not quite in the middle, but it's near enough. Right, so now we've got a hole through there. We also need to drill a hole in the end of this to put the wire in. Oh, this is going to be exciting. There we go. Right, so now we've got a hole in the end of that as well. So now what we can do is take one of our lights. So this is the LED I'm going to use. Yes, it is absolutely tiny. And we take a light. And I've just filled the inside of this with the chrome pen, just to give us a bit of a helping hand, and you'll see why in a minute. And what we do is we take our wires and we thread them through. Oh, of course, now what I'm trying to do is thread a silver wire through a hole I've painted silver. Right, go on, get in there. Right, that goes through like that. And that goes through like that. Just pull this all the way through. The nice thing about these LEDs, I got these pre-wired, and the wire on them is really long, which is very helpful when you're doing things like this. Right, so that goes in like that. Okay. Now we need to attach this to the bar, but before we attach this to the bar, there's something else I need to do. Now this is where the fun really starts, because what I need to do before I attach this is lock this LED in place. So it needs to go like that. Let's just check that it's actually working before we go any further. So I'll just connect this to a battery. And it is working, so that's fine. Because if I went through all this and then found out the LED had blown, I would not be happy. Right, now We need to make sure it's pointing in the right direction. Like that. And now what I've got here in this pipette is some UV resin. And this is going to be great fun trying to get this in here. Like that. And now we take a UV torch and this should hold that in place like that, you see. Now let's just make sure this is still working. Although if it's not working now, I don't know what I'm going to do, quite frankly. This might be the end of this little project. Oh. Yep, that's still working. That's good. Okay, so now what we need to do is attach this to the bar, but I think what we'll do first is we'll run these wires down through this tube and out the bottom like that. And we'll just get it roughly where it needs to be, because it's just a lot easier to do this now than it is to try and do it once everything's all together. And then we run these wires through the base, making sure we get it the right way round, because if we put them through the wrong way around, it's going to be really annoying. Oh. So that goes through like that, and that goes through like that. And now we can glue this all together, you see. So that glues onto there, and then that glues onto there, and that glues onto there as well, like that. Now that's going to be hilarious trying to do that, so I will play with this and glue it and swear at it and all the other things, and we'll come back and see it when it's done. Right, that's the first one done. And I'm going to leave this to dry completely before I do the other one, because it's still very, very delicate. And until all the solvents have flashed off and everything, it's going to be very delicate. So I'm going to leave it like this and then do the other one, and then we'll go on from there. Right, so here's our light bar all done. I'll just show you again what it looks like now it's complete. Just plug this into a battery quickly. So there we go. I need to mask off the lights, obviously, and paint this chrome. That's easy enough. I also have to do the grille. So here's our grille. And we've got 3 LEDs in here. We've got one for each headlight and then one for the central badge, because that's going to be basically Rudolph's nose. So that's going to be red. So that's got a red LED in it. And oh, just to show you the back of it, I've cut the various connectors and bent them in the right direction. I'll solder those up later. But what I want to do with this, and also with these rear lights, is they need to be red, obviously. Now that's got a red LED in it. These are going to be white LEDs. So I'm going to use this clear red to make them red, basically. And I'm going to do the same thing because I want that badge to appear red from the front. So what I need to do is do the same as I did with the spotlights. Put the LEDs in, seal them with some resin. Then I'm going to put some of this over the top to make them red. And then obviously, because I don't have lenses for these, because I 3D printed them. I mean, I could have 3D printed lenses as well, but I didn't. I'll just use some resin over the top to basically create like a lens. So I will do all that. And at the same time, I will do the same thing with this here. So I'll put some of this red in there. Just, it's more for this, it's more the fact that because the LED is red anyway, so it doesn't matter, but I want the badge to look red. So I'll use this to fill in the badge and then seal it with some resin. So I will do that, and then we'll see what it looks like. Right, so progress has happened. I have been finishing off the lights and everything that we saw last time, and I've also masked all the body parts, or primed all the body parts in white, and now I'm getting ready to spray the red. So I've masked off the various bits that I want to stay white, mainly the inside of the bed and the top of the cab, and I'm now getting ready to spray the red. So for the red, we are going to use this XF7 flat red, and because I'm going to be using quite a lot of it, this was a pot that was kind of like half empty, so I basically just thinned out the whole pot so I can just keep filling the airbrush from the pot and not have to keep mixing it, which is quite handy if you're spraying big areas like this. Anyway, let's make a start on this red. I'm not going to spray the whole thing in front of the camera because basically I'm just spraying red, and you know, I'm sure you all know what spraying things red looks like. But there you go, you get the idea. I'll do the rest of this off camera and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Right, so I've painted the red, as you can see, and I've also applied the first coat of varnish, and we're just using the normal high coat gloss lacquer. So there's only one coat on there, but what I wanted to show quickly before I carry on is, and hopefully you can see that, you can see obviously it's not very shiny at the moment because there's only one coat on there, but it's quite rough, the surface. I don't know if you can see that in the light, but you can see it's not smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to sand this, which sounds counterproductive, but there is method in my madness. Any woodworkers out there watching will know what I'm talking about. But what you want to do is, if you feel it, you can feel there's like bits and high spots and whatnot. So this is a sanding sponge. This is one from a set that I bought. It's quite a fine grit. I'm not sure what grit this is actually. It's about 1500, I think. But what you do is just wipe it. I'm not rubbing, I'm just wiping the surface. Just very gently. And it's just to get rid of those high spots. And any bits of fluff or anything that are stuck in the lacquer, or dust or anything else. And you can, hopefully you can see, it's starting to remove those high spots. This now already feels a lot smoother than this side, much smoother. I'm almost tempted just to do an experiment and leave half and half, but I don't want to have to sand it all down again. But I'm sure you get the idea. But just go over it very gently. This is obviously a fairly easy bit to do, which is why I chose it to demonstrate with, because it is the easiest bit, because it's wide and flat. But just go over the whole thing and just get rid of as much of that as you can. And you'll see it starts to turn white. Don't worry about that, because as soon as you put the next layer on, that will just disappear. So I will give this a wipe down, and then I'll give it another coat of varnish, and I'll show you what it looks like. Right, so here's our bonnet with another coat of lacquer on it, and you can see, hopefully you can see how much smoother that is than it was before. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. I mean, you can obviously use polishes and things and get this to a mirror finish, but I'm I have neither the time nor the inclinations to do that, but it gives you an idea anyway. So a few other bits I've done while I've been lacquering and things. I've done the tailgate. I've applied the decals to it, and in keeping with our theme, I also, as you can see, turned it from the Chevrolet into the Chevroslet. So the S and the little arrow actually came from another decal set. I don't know if you remember, some time ago I did a Ford hot rod with a big block V8 in it, and this is the decal set from that. Obviously I didn't use most of them, but what I did was, there's this one here that says Paso or Bust, so I took the S and the R and used those to make it look like somebody's added an S to it, so that's quite handy. That's quite satisfactory. And also I have added the wooden decals to the bed. I was going to paint it, and then I thought, the decals look all right, we'll give it a go, and they've actually come out looking fine. So that's all done. So I think we are now in a position, possibly, where we can actually start putting this thing together, and doing some wiring and things. There's a couple more things I want to do on the paint, but the other thing we need to do is things like these marker lights need to be done. In fact, these rear panels come out really nice. I'm very happy with the way they came out. But yes, there's a few bits to do still, but we are getting there. So we will continue apace, as they say. Right, we're on the home stretch now as far as painting goes. The last major thing to do are some snowflakes that I'm going to paint on the red. So I've made a little stencil here, and for that I used a piece of masking tape, and I used one of these little craft punch things. So this one's obviously a snowflake, so you just put the paper inside it, push down, and it cuts the shape. So I, as I say, cut that on a piece of masking tape, then I cut a hole in a piece of paper, stuck that on, and that gives us our stencil. So that's that. We're going to use XF2 flat white, and we are going to put these on basically the red body panels. So I will demonstrate, and I'll use the bonnet to demonstrate, basically because it's the easiest, because it's a large flat surface. So basically we'll put one about there somewhere, so we can just tack that down like that, and then take the airbrush and we just want to kind of mist over it. Like that. We don't want to go mad with it. Just like that. And then when we peel this off, we have a snowflake. So I will paint the rest of these, and then we've just got a few little details to do, and then I think we can actually start putting this thing together. Nearly there, not long now. Right, so that's all the snowflakes done, as you can see. I've also gone over the side marker lights with the chrome pen, and now I'm just going to go over them with some clear, well, this is the X27 clear red for the back ones, and then we'll use the orange for the front ones. So I'll just do one just to show you what I'm doing, because again, I'm trying to do this in front of the camera. But just give it a nice little coat of this red, and then we'll leave it flat to let it dry, and then we can put another coat of varnish on it, or lacquer, and that should do us. But there you go, I'll just tidy it up a bit, but you get the idea. So I'll do the other one, I'll do the front ones in orange, give it another coat of lacquer, and then I think we can finally start thinking about putting this thing together. Right, so this is pretty much done now. I'm very pleased with how this has come out, I have to say. I think that looks pretty good. Now, the last thing I want to do on the main sort of body work on the paint, and I'm I'm not looking forward to doing this. Most of these C10s have like a chrome trim around the wheel arch, and I was toying of idea of just leaving it, but I kind of want it on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these chrome pens, and this is because I have a set of them, 1mm, 2mm, and 4mm. This is the 4mm one, and I'm going to try and draw this on, and it's either going to go really well or it's going to look bloody awful, but we'll give it a try and see how it works. So, because what I want to try and do, where are my glasses? I want to try and do it in like one fell swoop if I can. So I'll try and keep it under the camera, but let's see how this goes. Oh, that actually went really well. It's just a shame I had to stop there, but see, this back half isn't moulded quite as well, so but that I think looks pretty good. I'm very happy with that. So I'm going to do the rest of these, and then we'll put the bed together, I think, and then after that we need to paint some of the detail under the bonnet, and then I think we can put the chassis together and then start putting this all together, I think. Cool. Right, I think we're in a position now where we can start putting this chassis together. So I've got the engine glued in, and what do I need now? The exhaust, because I need to put this one in before the transfer case can go in. So I'll put some super glue in the end of this, and we'll put a little drop on this cross member. This will get held mostly in place by the transfer case, so that'll be all right. Now, that goes like that. I'll make sure that is turned to the correct angle. Now we can put the transfer case in, which we've now got to try and finagle around the back of the engine. That goes like that. Put a little drop of glue on there. I'll touch up that paint later. Now we want, that does not look like it's in straight. Alright, there we go. Right, now we want to do the rear axle. Actually, no, I'll put the other exhaust pipe in first. What am I doing? Put this in first. I mean, it doesn't really make that much difference, but I think it'd just be a bit easier doing it this way around. Pop this one in. like that. Now we can put the back axle in. The funny thing of it is, this actually came with like a 4-link setup on it, which is a bit weird considering it's it doesn't actually need it, but still. Oh, let's turn this up. And it doesn't fit at all. I think I might have mentioned it before. It just does not fit one little bit, which is kind of comical. But then that kind of sums up this kit in its entirety. Nothing fits. Oh, get in there. And now this doesn't want to go in. I dry fitted all this earlier and it fitted perfectly, and now it doesn't want to go together, which is hilarious. But we will wrangle it into place. Some glue on there. I think we'll clamp this down for a minute and let it dry, and then put the front on. Because as I said, for some reason this has now decided it doesn't want to fit together, which is par for the course for this thing. Right. You should be there. Like that. Alright, I'll get a clamp on that one. And now we'll try and get this last one into place. Like I said, I dry fitted this all together earlier and it fit together fine, and now suddenly it's decided it doesn't want to fit together, which is hilarious. Right, there we go. That's that. Now, let's see if we can get the front axle on as well, shall we? The front axle also had a roll bar, which also doesn't fit at all. And when I say it doesn't fit, I mean there is literally nothing to attach it to. So, yeah. It does kind of make one wonder, as I've mentioned several times when building various models, did anybody actually try and build this thing before they put it in the box and sold it? Because I suspect possibly not. Right. Oh, this thing's really heavy now. It's got these clamps on it. Speaking of which, I think I've mentioned these little clamps before. They're really, really useful. I got them from an auto jumble place, you know, like a car show or something. And it was one of those places that sells like cheap tools. And they sell these in packs of 8. And they are so useful. They're the kind of things that you don't use them very often, but for things like this, they are absolutely perfect. So if you get the opportunity to get them, I'd say I'd give you a link to them, but I bought them, you know, in person at a fair. I'm trying to keep this under the camera, and I've just realised I'm all over the place here. So now it's got this, now it's got these clamps on it. It kind of has a radius to it. All right, put that on there. That one. See, this is what's nice, is these front two on here have actually gone into place. Oh, I might put a clamp on them anyway, just for the sake of it, just to make sure. Did I put glue on that one? I can't remember. put some more on just in case. Right, now let's turn this over. It's got some gravity to it now as well. And we'll leave that to dry and go on from there. Right, while that chassis is drying, I'm going to try and get these rear lights on. I'm not entirely sure. I need to make sure they're going to fit first, because they fitted before, but whether they still fit, of course, is like nothing else fits on this thing. Even though they're things that I made, I'm still not sure they're going to fit. So we'll just try and thread those wires through there like that. Right, it does fit, but you need to kind of like pull the wire through and pop it in place at the same time. So what I'm going to do is just bend that over a bit, and I'm just going to put a little touch of super glue on it just to hold it in place, because to be honest it won't go anywhere, but I just want to try and make sure that we give it every chance we can. So now I need to pull that wire through and try and finagle this into place at the same time. Oh. That's nearly in the right place. Like that somehow. Okay, there we go. So the next thing I've got to do is put the other one on and then run the wires down through the bed. So we'll do that. Right, so the tail lights are on and still working, which is the most important thing. So now we can put the roll cage on. So what we need to do is thread these wires and make sure we get them on the right side, because otherwise it won't fit, through the holes in the bed. Like, get in there. Get. Oh. Right, that one's through. And we'll put that one through. Oh. The thing is, it's nice having these wires nice and long, but it also means that they're kind of awkward at times to maneuver around. Right, and that goes in like that. I mean, obviously it needs to be glued, but that's roughly where it goes. Right, so I've just glued a few bits into the engine bay, and now, while that's all drying, I thought I'd move over to the electronics. And this is the really tricky bit with this, because what I want to do is run the wire from the bed underneath, along the chassis rail. And so what I want to do is, rather than having like 4 sets of wires coming out, I'm joining them together just to have one. But the trouble is with this wire, and this is why I always think to myself, I should get a load of this wire and use it, because it's nice and thin and handy. But the problem is, well, this is the problem, is trying to strip the insulation off of it, because the wire is so thin, it just, if you just look at it funny, it snaps. And I've yet to find a pair of wire strippers that will actually work on wire this thin. If anybody's got any suggestions, I'd be more than happy to hear it. But yeah, I just use a pair of clippers and just very, very gently grip it, and it just snaps as soon as you look at it funny. But you know, it is what it is. So what we want to do now is join all of these wires together, and then we will attach a longer piece that will go along the chassis rail and then join up with the wires from the headlights, which is what I'm going to do after I've done this. So I'll twist these two together. And it does become a bit of a nightmare, but it makes it also slightly less of a rat's nest. That's the plan anyway. And so once it's soldered and everything, it'll be fine. It's just getting it to that position in the first place. Right, now this is the other bit that I'm going to use, which I've already stripped, but I need some heat shrink. Right, that's some heat shrink, and we'll pop that over these, because the last thing you want to do is forget to put the heat shrink on, because then you'll hate yourself. We need to join this all together. It's going to be fine. Soldering paste. Some solder would be nice. Ow. See, the other thing you've got to be careful of with these very thin wires as well is not to overheat them, because they can get very, very hot very, very quickly and basically melt. So you just have to be super careful with these things. Right. Now, some solder on there. I'm not quite sure how I want to do this now. I seem to have got myself into a bit of a pickle, because I need to do everything right-handed. And what I don't want to do as well is damage the paintwork on this thing. Right, that's that one. And that's that one. Right. Let's get a battery and just check these LEDs are still working. Although at this point, if they're not, I don't know what I'm going to do, but there you go. We'll just give it a check anyway. Make sure they don't touch. Make sure I've got the wires the right way around. And they do. All of them are working. Marvellous. Right. That went a lot better than I thought it was going to be honest. So what I'll do now is I'll just snip off this bit of excess solder. I could try and melt it, but if I do, I know what will happen. It'll all go horribly wrong. So I'll just snip that off. And then we will get the heat shrink on. And then this body will be ready to go onto the chassis. But before that, I might as well, while I've got the soldering iron out, I'll do the wiring for the front lights as well. Right, so here's our headlights set up. So this is a lot simpler. Basically, we just need to go from here to here to here and out. So let's, I don't want to use this wire, I use the silicone wire. Right, I want to quite a long piece here because I want this wire way longer than it needs to be, because what I don't want to do is do something which has happened in the past where you cut the wires and then you run them through into the base and they're not long enough. So that should be long enough, hopefully. And we'll get some black, same length. Right, so what would be ideal would be to do this in one fell swoop. I don't know if that's going to work. Now for this I should be able to use wire strippers. Oh, I'm dropping it all on the floor. Oh, I love wiring, it's so much fun. Alright. I wonder if this will work. It needs to be there. Oh, that might work. Right, let's snip a little bit off of this one. So what I'm trying to do is remove the insulation so that I can do this in with just one piece of wire and not have to keep cutting it and joining it. And I think this is going to work, so like that. And then that needs to run up to there. Like that. Right, let me cut the other bit and then we'll solder it all together. That seems to be working all right. So let's see if we can make this happen. It's going to be fine. What could possibly go wrong? So soldering paste in all of the appropriate places. Right, so I think what we want to do is try and do the middle first. Oh, very lucky to do this without burning my fingers, I think. Right, that's got that one. And now we want this one. Probably better to hold this with a pair of tweezers or something instead of holding it with my fingers and end up burning them. Although it wouldn't be the first time. That's that one. Now we want to do this one. It's not ideal. I could do with taking off a bit more insulation really, but I'm worried about breaking the wire. We might just have to try and melt it off. Right, that's got it. Okay, now let's do the other side. Okay, now let's give this a quick test. And this is either going to work flawlessly or not. So looks, there we go. Good. Whew. that was more heart palpitations than it needed to be. Okay, so now those are done. We can I think fit the bed, run the wire, and quite possibly put the cab on as well. Yeah, we're not far off being done now. Right, so let's get this bed glued on, hopefully. And we can leave this to set up for a while. I also had to modify the chassis, by the way, because there were these horns at the back on the spring hangers that didn't fit between the wheel tubs. So, yeah, I had to cut bits off to make it fit, but there you go. Right, we'll leave that to dry for a significant period of time. And then we will turn our attention back to the cab. Actually, before we move on, I will just get this wire run through this chassis rail. As I say, there's this nice little groove in the top, which is the perfect spot for this wire to go. So I'll just pop it in like that, and then apply a little bit of UV resin just to hold it in place. Let that spread out a bit, and then hit it with a UV torch. And that should hold that nicely in place, and then we can run the wire down behind the wheel with the other wires and run them through the base. So there we go. Right, let's leave that for now. Right, so I think while I've got everything in place, I'm going to put the cab on, which is not terribly difficult. It's just obviously because this engine is not designed to go with this, you have to kind of finagle the cab over the engine and into place, which is not the end of the world. It goes on fairly easy. And then we've got to try and figure out a way to glue it down. Right, so the cab is now attached. It's relatively secure as far as I can tell. I can actually lift the truck by the cab, so although I'm not doing that too much because I don't want to risk it breaking. So what I've been doing is doing all the various wiring and stuff inside the engine bay. I did some of it before I put the cab on, so like the battery wires. I've added a Willwood brake master cylinder and some brake lines. And so the last thing I need to do under the bonnet here is attach the coil leads on this side. And I thought I'd do that. I'll show you like how it's done. But it's basically, whatever you're doing, it's all the same process. You might actually recognize these wires, the keen-eyed among you. These are actually the wires that came from the LEDs that we fitted in the back. It's like the excess wire. So I've used it for this. So what we need to do, what I need to do is find my glasses. And there they are. Because quite frankly, I haven't got a cat and else chance of doing this without them. It's difficult enough with them. Now, what we want to do is take a wire. I'm going to just move these over a little bit because this is going to be the fun one, this one at the back. Okay, I think this one might be the one. So let's move these three out of the way. And we'll take this one. Oh. Okay, and what we do is take our, unfortunately we have to use our good clippers for this, but we'll just clip that off like that. Get rid of that. And then bend this wire roughly into the right place. Like that. And then what we want to do is put a little dab of super glue on the end of that wire. Oh, come here. Like that. And the trouble is, like I say, this glue, this Gorilla Glue has kind of gone off a bit. It's kind of annoying because there's like, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's like half a bottle left, and it's gone very, it's like treacle, and it's very thick and gloopy, and worse, it's incredibly stringy. Oh, I can't pop this wire now. Right, and then we pop that in there like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm still using it, but it's getting to the point where I think I'm going to throw it away. My daughter has a bottle of it as well, and she said hers has done the same. In fact, I think hers is even worse, so, which is kind of annoying. She uses it far more than I do for her sculpting, because obviously she's working with clay, so super glue is pretty much the only thing that will stick it together once it's cured, or kiln dried, or baked, or whatever it is you do with it. You know what I mean. Anyway, right, let's turn this around a little bit. I just found this tube of Loctite Universal Gel, and that has been sitting on the bench here for, I have no idea how long, months, and it's perfectly good. It's already been opened, and it's got fine. So, good job, Loctite, apparently. All right, let's get the next wire in place. So that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. We'll use this one. And we snip that off. Oh. Right, let's see what this Loctite stuff is like. It's certainly not as gloopy as the other one, that's for sure. Right. And then we pop that in there like that. That went remarkably well. And then this This is the last one. Don't know where that went. Might have fell out the bottom, might not have done. Drop that on the end of there. Cut that one too short. I've got it too short. Oh, you're kidding me. It's literally like 0.5 millimetre too short. I usually cut them too long, and this one I've cut a touch too short. That's fine, we'll figure it out. Right, and that's the last one. So there we go. So next we are going to put the bumpers on, I think. But we need to figure out some number plates first. I've got something interesting in that regard. Right, I just recorded a whole bit and then realised that the camera wasn't running, so I'll do it again, but that's fine because we're doing a couple of these anyway. So you'll see there, I've just stuck something onto this. This is a piece of 1/4 millimetre styrene sheet, and I'm making number plates. So what I've done, I actually found online a website that lets you create US style vanity plates. So I basically used that to make a screenshot of what I wanted, which I could then print onto some white decal paper. If you have a colour laser printer, or even if you've got an inkjet printer, you can print your own decals. You can buy decal paper and print your own. So yeah, it's very handy for things like this. So I'm going to do a few of them. Just then we can, you know, see which ones are the best and go from there, sort of thing. So basically they work just like regular decals. You just soak them in some warm water. And we've got our decal setter here. We'll just put some of this on here. And this decal paper is actually white, which is very handy if you're doing things like this. You can also get clear decal paper as well. But it's like for this, where we want this to be white, having a white background actually, you know, having white paper makes a lot more sense. So we'll just, you do have to be a little bit careful with these because this paper is very thin. But there you go, you can see how that's gone on. And so I've got a couple more here. So I'll do a few of them. And then what we'll do is we'll see which ones look the best when we cut them out, and those are the ones that we'll put on the truck. So I'll do the rest of these and then we'll go on from there. Right, so I picked the 2 best number plates. There wasn't really much to choose from, to be honest. And I cut them out and I gave them a coat of gloss lacquer just to seal them. And what we're going to do now is we're going to try and stick them onto the bumpers. So I think I'm going to use super glue for this. I think this would be the best option. So we'll just put a little drop in the middle there. That should be more than enough. And then we're going to try and put this on and not make a complete dog's breakfast of it. Right, can you not stick to the tweezers? Thank you. something like that, I think. So we will let this dry. And like I say, the nice thing with that is you can see it kind of has some depth to it. It's not just a, you know, a flat decal. It actually has some you know, some dimensionality to it. So we'll leave that to dry, and then we can put the bumpers on, and we'll be nearly done then. Well, I say nearly done. We've still got all the wiring and everything to do yet, but it's fine. Everything's fine. Right, now this is where the fun really starts. Trying to put these wing mirrors on. This is potentially the bit where this whole thing just falls apart and I've ruined the whole model. But we'll see. Right. I think I'm going to have to use super glue for this because I don't want to put anything else on here because I don't want to it wants to go on there like that. Right. So let's try and get some put a bit on there first. What we want to do is get as much of it off as we can, so we just got a little tiny bit because we don't want it to come smearing out ideally. Like that. Oh, this is going to be awful. Right, nobody breathe. Right, that is either going to stay or it's going to just fall straight off. Oh dear. Right, that looks like it's in the right place. It's even fairly straight. Okay, I'll put the other one on, and then I think we can think about putting the grill in and trying to do something with this wiring. Right, so I got a bit carried away again, did a couple of bits off camera, sorry. I fitted the front grille, I've put the bumpers on, so that's all done. The truck is now basically done. I've also joined the wires together here so that they can hide up inside the wheel well, so that's all fine. So what we need to do now is make a start on the base. So we'll do that because I need that to be drying while I work on the electronics. So let's put this to one side and start on the base. Right, so I think it's long overdue that we start working on the base. So what I've got here, this is the base of one of those trumpeter display cases. You've seen me use these before. And what I want to do is create like a snow effect. So as you can see, I've masked off the edges, and that's basically just to stop anything getting into the groove, the slot where the top sits. And what I've also done, which is I think is a good idea with these, they tend to have quite a nasty mold line around the bottom edge. So I just sanded it slightly and then sprayed it black. Now what I've got in this little tub here, this is baking powder, or baking soda actually. I've got tons of this stuff, like literally like 10 kilos of it. But I bought this, I have a media blaster, a sandblasting cabinet, And I use this for sandblasting plastic because it's great for taking like the shiny surface off without damaging the plastic. But what we're going to do, and I don't know if this is going to, I'd rather do this with a sieve. I have a little sieve somewhere, but I can't find it. So what we're going to do is just get some on a spoon like this, and then we're just going to just tap the spoon and just cover the whole thing in this, like so. Try and get rid of some of these big bits if we can. This is why I wanted to use a sieve, but like I say, I had a sieve and I don't know what I've done with it. Although I think I might have to sieve it because this is too lumpy. Right, bear with me, I need to go and find a sieve. Right, I've got this nasty old tea strainer from the house. I don't know whether this is going to work, but we'll give it a go. So I'll just put some of that in there and just, oh, that's better. That's more like it. That's what I wanted to do. This is basically like baking a cake or icing a cake. So I'll spread this out a little bit. Get rid of some of these lumps. I don't mind the odd lump on here because it will kind of look slightly more realistic, but I don't want too many. Right. So this is going to take a while, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to very slowly build it up in layers until it looks like snow, basically. So I'll keep on at this, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. But you can see it basically puts all the, it leaves all the lumps in the sieve, and it looks a lot more like snow and not so much like lumps. Right, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but what I want to try and do is it's now decided it doesn't want to turn, because of course it has. Oh, come on, wheel, turn. Right, something like that. Right, that looks better. That's much more like it. Right. So what we'll do now is go over it again with a little bit more, and just to kind of soften it up a bit. And also where it's moved where it's made, you know, big gaps. Something like that. And now the fun part really begins. So what I want to do is just brush around the edges to get it off of the tape as much as possible. And then what we're going to do is try and fix this with some scenery glue. Right, so this is scenery glue. You've seen me make this stuff before. I'll put a link to the video, and let's see if we can get this. This might take a while. So what you'll notice I'm doing is I'm not putting it on top of these ridges. I'm putting it next to it, and I'm hoping it's going to kind of soak into it and kind of fix it that way. It's funny, my daughter did this on one of the things she was working on, and it came out really well. I've got high hopes for this, that it will do the same. What we'll do is we'll soak this down, then I think I'll sprinkle some more over the top, and hopefully that will give us the effect that we want. Right, that looks okay. And then, like I said, what we'll do is we'll put some more over the top, because it's done what I thought it might do, and it's kind of gone a bit transparent, but I thought it would do that. I was planning for that. So I mean, worst case, I'll just spray it white. Those little semicircular bits where the things went, they're going to be reindeer hooves. They're reindeer prints, that's what they are. You won't see them under the truck anyway, so. Right, that doesn't look too bad. So we'll let that dry, and then we're going to have to poke a hole in it for the wires to go through. Right, now that base is drying, we can start on the electronics. So I have a switch, I have a charging circuit, I have a battery, which is out of a certain type of device that I won't mention because I'll get demonetized, because apparently YouTube thinks I'm promoting harmful practices by recycling batteries. Who knew? We've got soldering paste, we have solder, and I've got the soldering iron right here. So the first thing we need to do, I'm just going to desolder these wires that were on here and put some new wires on. Get rid of that. And get rid of those. Get off. Right. That goes on there like that. Oh. And that goes on there like that. This is where I start being careful, because what we don't want to do is short these wires out, but we should be all right. And we need to connect these to the charging circuit, which will do two things for us. Firstly, they need to be connected anyway, but also it will stop the wires from touching and shorting out. So what we've got on here is you have, there are 4 connectors. So you've got out positive, battery negative, out negative. So the battery goes to the 2 middle ones. So we pop that through there and bend it over, and then that one goes through there, and we bend it over, we turn that over. Those wires are not quite the same length, which is slightly annoying, but I apologise to anybody out there who might be OCD, but we are running very short of time. Right, and then we put that on there, and that will hold that. And we put that on there, and that will hold that. And there we go, you see. And I'll put some on the top as well, just, you know, belt and braces and all that. That's way too much, but never mind. There we go. Right, so that's our battery connected. So now, if I plug in a suitable USB cable, which goes in that way up, you will see that the red charging light comes on to charge the battery, which is what we would expect and what we have. So everything is going very well so far. So we'll unplug that. When that's fully charged, that will turn blue. So you've got 2 little LEDs there, one red one, one blue one, but we'll come back to those later. So what we need to do now is we need a piece of black wire. In fact, we'll leave that for a minute. We need to put a red wire from the charging circuit to the switch. And this is where things start getting slightly awkward, because what we need to do now is think about putting the switch into the box. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to attach the 2 wires to the switch, and then I can feed that through the box and then solder them onto this. Right, as I was saying, soldering paste, and solder. Like that, and like that. So those are done. That's fine. We now want to attach a black wire to this, because it'd be a bit easier to do that before we put it all in the box. Through there and fold it over. Soldering paste. And solder. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Soldering paste first. There we go. Right, so this is all prepared now. So what we need to do now is bring in our box. Oh dear, come here. Right, so this is the box that this is all going in. So this is where things start getting very exciting. So let's strip the end of these wires first. Right, and we'll put those through there. In fact, actually, what I'll do first is I'll put the charging circuit in. So hopefully you can see that. There's a little platform here that the charging circuit sits on, and it has a little bit at the back that stops this from moving backwards. So when you plug it in and out, you can't move it. But what I'll do is I'll also stick it down. These are just some double-sided sticky pads from the pound shop, which stick magnificently to your fingers, but not very well to anything else, but never mind. Right, so we'll stick that down like that. Oh, I've got the paper off now, there we go. Right, and then we drop that in there and set it down like so, and that will then hold that nice and tight. And what I'll also do in a minute is I'll put another one on the battery as well, just so that it doesn't, you know, flap around. But we'll worry about that in a second. So what we can do now is put our switch through. And this is one of the things that's kind of awkward with this, because you have to do all this before you can complete all the circuits. So that just snaps through like that. And then we want to take this and that goes to the positive out on the charging circuit. Oh, if I could get the blooming wire through it. Like that. Then we solder that into place. Like that. And now we can connect these two wires to the lights and everything will work swimmingly, he says, with supreme confidence. So I'll just put a sticky pad, like I said, on that battery, just so that it doesn't flap around. Let's move these out of the way for a second. So I'll just stick that on there. And then take the paper off, and that can go like that. And like I said, that just stops that from rattling around. So that's that. Now, one final thing I want to do before we button this up. Just so you can see, by the way. If I plug this in now from the outside, you can see the battery's charging. But that does bring us to the last point. You can't see those status lights from the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little like thing that will carry that light to the outside. And usually the easiest way to do this, I have found, is to take something like this, which is a piece of plastic sprue from a model, the clear one, and basically use this as like a fibre optic. So what I'll do is I'll cut a corner off. Let's get some clippers. And we cut it way bigger than it needs to be. I'll nip that corner off as well. Like that. And I don't know if I can actually demonstrate that or not, but if I put that there, can you see that the end of that is lit up? So that's basically how we're going to do this. Right, this is 2mm. So we need a 2mm drill. Right, so let's drill a hole through here. There we go. Right. It goes like that. Then we pop that through the hole that we just drilled, which I now can't see. Oh. I might need to sand this a bit actually. I think it's got a bit of a, ironically, it's got a bit of a mould line on it. Right, that should fit now. Well, what a bit of brute force and ignorance. There we go. Right, and what I've done is I've basically positioned that in between the two LEDs. Now it's not terribly effective at the moment, but there's a way we can improve that. And what we do is we take a hot glue gun and we put a nice blob of hot glue like that. Which leaves loads of stringy bits, but we're not worried about that. And what that will do is help carry that light to the outside. And what we can do, now that's in place, we take our cutters and we just cut that off like that. And there you can see, hopefully, that red light. It's not terribly bright, but it's there. And that's what matters. So there we go. So that's now all done. We'll leave that plugged in and charging. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to use one of these junction blocks to connect the wires together rather than soldering them, because then that way if anything needs to be done with this, you can do it without actually having to take all this stuff apart. I need a small flat screwdriver like this one. Right, so what we do now is we take our wires bend that over, we'll pop that in there. Like that. And then, oh, I didn't strip that one, did I? Never mind. All right. That goes in that side. Like that. They're good and tight. So we'll put this to one side now, just leave it charging, and turn our attention to the top and put the truck onto the base. Right, so here is our base, more or less dry. I think it's dry. So what I want to do first is drill a hole, again using the same 2mm drill bit, basically behind the front wheel where the wires are. So I'll kind of eyeball it. I think it wants to be about there somewhere. Right, there we go. That could have gone better, but never mind. Right, let's get rid of some of these bits of plastic. And I'll just put that there for a minute, because we now need to run these wires down through that hole. Never mind. Right, so let's put these wires down through the hole, like I said. So that's that one. And then this one. Like that. Right, and now what we need to do is pick this up and move that over like that. And then we also need to get that like that. There we go. Right, now that's on the base. Let's see if I can do this, because what I'd like to do is turn this wheel a little bit. That's it. Okay. Bring in our box. Just unplug that charging cable for a minute, because that's going to be in the way. And we should now, let's make sure that switch is in the off position. And what we want to do is put that in there. What did I do with the screwdriver? There it is. Right, that goes like that. That's got that. And then this one goes in the other side. Like that. Then we very carefully pick this up and desperately try not to drop it. Get those wires out of the way. Pop that down like that. And I think we're ready for the grand test. And in fact, I think we can also wrap this up. All right, here we go. And here is our finished article. So yes, I think it's time for the grand test. Let's see if this thing actually works. I'm sure it'll be fine. So here we go. Wonderful stuff. The lights actually work. Oh, my daughter's just turned up. Hello, Katie.
Hello, Katie. Oh, you haven't done those things yet?
No, I haven't done those things yet because I've been kind of doing this.
Oh, I see.
Santa's Chevroslet. She's just staring at me, blinking. Look, you see, it's got lights and it's got Rudolph's red nose and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And working spotlights and working tail lights and
Right, but you haven't sprayed my things.
No, I haven't sprayed your things. Because I've been doing this because it's Christmas.
Christmas!
Yes, child, it's Christmas. Well, it's Christmas. By the time this video comes out, it'll be Christmas. Although it's more or less Christmas now anyway. As I say, this has gone right up to the wire here, folks. So, anyway, yes, hopefully you've enjoyed this little video. I was actually going to split this into maybe 2 or 3 videos, but then I know some people like the longer videos, and also I've had people say in the past that they may not necessarily have much in the way of company over Christmas. So there you go. You can listen to me waffle on for a while. Speaking of which, if that's the case, on the gaming channel, I'll link that below. There are a couple of Christmas videos on there as well. One of which featuring my daughter.
Me.
Yes, you.
Christmas.
So if you enjoy her ramblings as much as you enjoy mine, then by all means feel free to pop over and watch those as well. But yes, there we go. Shanta's Chevrolet, not Santa's Chevrolet. So this is Santa Claus, Father Christmas's ill-fated attempt to modernise in the 70s by buying himself a supercharged, methanol-powered sport side pickup. And having a custom paint job put on it. So there you go. So yes, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I'd like to take a moment to thank my top tier patrons, Howard, Amy and Hawaii Clive O, for their continued support, and all of you channel members and patrons and viewers at home, all very, very much appreciated. I hope you've all had a good year. If you haven't had a good year, I hope next year is better, and we will see you all in the next video. Say Merry Christmas, Katie.
Merry Christmas, Katie.
Merry Christmas to you all, or whatever celebration you happen to be doing, or not, as the case may be. Either way, I hope you have a nice time. See you on the next one, folks. Cheers. Bye.